Hello, team.
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday.
Hi, Alexis.
Alexis.
Let's give a couple of minutes for folks to gather, and we'll start between 1:03 and 04.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Lexi.
Hello, Sana. While we're waiting for people to gather, Sana, I have an item for you in the agenda, but I don't know if you're ready to talk about it today, though.
Alexi, it's good. We can brainstorm about it. I didn't prepare any slides, but I would like to discuss this topic and see how the community feels about some of those ideas.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that's
And I'm
perfect.
under the weather, so pardon me for my bad voice right now.
No worries. Well, thank you for making the time and joining us. It appears that I'm not recording these meetings. I don't know how I should go at it.
I can record. I'm logged in as a host.
Oh, hey, Tal. Thanks for joining. Thank you for that.
Oh, it seems like it is recording.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it might be auto recording. I'm not sure, but yeah, anyway, it's recording.
Great. Well, thanks for being there, Tal. We'll get started in a minute. So let's wait, and we'll get started very soon. All right, let's get going. Hello, everyone. This is SIG 1 Network Architecture meeting, Monday, March 20th. No, sorry, 18. I live in the future sometimes. Joke aside, we have a light agenda today. Although we'll see how light it's going to be because I have a topic that I want to bring up, but I don't have any housekeeping item. Then we'll go through the various working groups updates. I do have one item for the scoping working group. So we might spend quite a bit of time today discuss maybe a process on how to hand off work between SIG 1 and SIG 2 once the user stories has been approved. And then likewise, based on the time that we need, we want to introduce the topic of Gen AI for Nefio. And this is more of a brainstorm, nothing concrete in terms of this is just an initial discussion, as we had one last week from Orange. This is another one on a different topic, again, to help us prepare a little bit Nefio for R3 and beyond. So beside these, so that's the agenda. Is there anything else people would like to add today? All right, so then let's jump straight into it. We still have a low attendance thus far, but I think we can get started with the working group updates. So I think we're going to start straight with the Oran, because Tim, I see you're online. If there is any specific things you'd like to share here with the team.
Just to let you know that we did get through the RX scoping meeting, we did get the create cluster use case through that scoping process. We are actually going to start some additional design work on that, and we're going to use the ORAN meetings to do the design work. So for all these use cases, there's a task that we have to go in and identify the tasks that are needed for each of the use cases, and we're finishing off the design that we have on the Create Cluster use case. So we're going to use the ORAN to do at least the design of the Create Cluster, and I'm also going to have make sure that we have the appropriate tasks identified for network automation for the other use cases, or at least they have done those. So I'm just doing a little project management on those other aspects. That's about it. So we still have 2 other use cases that are still in the works. I think once that's a delete cluster and then the cloud registration, those go fairly quickly once we get the design of the Create Cluster done. So.
All right.
All right.
A quick note. It seems the Create cluster is dropped from your list.
Shouldn't be.
Although
I just moved it there. Maybe when I edit it, it's there on the edit, but maybe it's not there when I'll fix it. Whatever it is, I'll fix it.
Yeah, no big deal. I was just looking because usually this is pretty well tidy up. All right, so thanks, Tim. I think this is great news. At least internally, there is a lot of interest for us to also contribute to this. So from a Red Hat standpoint, I meant to say, but we're glad that, congratulations to you on at least that last use case, because your stories, because I know this is something we need to get to, and for the so sorry, my goal was to link it to the team. For those that haven't seen it, I welcome you to look at it. This is the user story specifically that was approved last week. And so as we get into the low-level design as part of the working group 2 meetings, if you want to have some say in it, you're welcome to join that team. Again, it has a specific ORAN twist to it, so be mindful that this is very specific to the O2 interface. Okay, thank you very much, Tim. Do we have Kieran on the call? I don't think he's on yet. No, we don't. Do we have Subash on the call? Subash, yep, Subash, I see you're on. Is there any update? I think last week you mentioned you were looking at reviewing the NF2 infra proposal from WIM to see how we could adjust user stories.
Yeah, of course. So last week, actually, we had discussion with the Vim, and he presented the idea of the NF2 infra with us. He introduced us, and then we got the agreement that let's improve our user stories based on the NF2 infra, and let's see whether it fulfills the requirement. So this week we are going to again discuss on this topic by improving the user stories. So yeah, so the presentation was done on the NFV infra, and we will improve our user stories. And also, yeah, this week I wanted to open some brainstorming around the ML use cases on by the workgroup 5. So that we did not discuss it yet, but yeah, in upcoming meeting, definitely we will discuss. So we are looking towards this direction also, means how ML could be taken. Uh, we can think around the ML, and how we can go around the use case around it on the control loop side. Yeah. So just we are also trying to brainstorm it. So that will open. So yeah, these were the two updates. Yeah.
Thank you, Subhash. Yeah, this is pretty cool. All right. Well, I'm definitely curious about bringing ML to
Yeah. Sure.
to this point. But I think this is great that the discussion is going to start. So thank you, and we'll follow up for the other three. User stories, just ping me when you believe it's in a good enough shape so we can get them scheduled for Friday meeting.
Of course. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Subhash. So Kieran, okay, so let me jump on the architecture, arc scope planning topic. So as you heard, we met last week, and the Credo Cloud Kubernetes cluster user story was approved from the working group 2. So we made good progress there. We also the other task regarding architecture is on me, but I failed to deliver it for this week. So I'm still it's still on my to-do, or rather on my editor locally, but I'm revamping the architecture based on the feedback that I got last week. So I don't have an update to provide now, but that's I haven't dropped the ball. That's what I'm trying to say. This is still a work in progress. But I think last week, Monday and Friday, team representing the working group 2 asked, how do we go from user stories being approved to them being owned, quote unquote, by SIG2, or I don't know if owned is the right term, but what should be the process, right, to hand off these user stories? Because right now we have at least 5 user stories from the working group 2, and a couple of more coming up on various other streams. And we don't have a clear process, I would say. And so the goal is to identify, and so Tal, this is great, you're on the call, but let me know if you'd like to defer the discussion, but to discuss a bit with you and the team collaboratively how we should go at it, right? I don't want to say handoff, because it's not necessarily 100% a handoff, but still, until the user story is approved, it's on SIG1 to make all the work. And after the user story is approved, I think there is still some shared responsibilities, but that's what I'd like to discuss here. So I'm open to comments, and the intention is to identify how we work together once these user stories are approved.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize here, our current release date for R3 is in 3 months. So let's be very realistic. We keep saying R3 or R3 plus. We have some big issues to handle for R3 that are not related to new use cases. We have some serious usability issues that have been reported regarding performance and using Porch and potentially bugs. So I want to be realistic, right? These are very big use cases that we're handing off here. We'll definitely start working on them, but I want us to be realistic about when they'll actually be delivered. So I would say that the next step for the handoff, excuse me, would be to define a POC that could be, per use case, that could be put maybe in R3. So beyond the story as itself as a whole, something we want to achieve moving forward, is there something we can show off at with an R3 release that just shows some basic ability and progress? So I know we're working hard on scoping the user stories and approving them, but I think we also need to scope a specific smaller POC. Maybe it's up to us, right? We can say, let's not make a POC and just move forward on everything, and it'll be released when it's released.
Right. So yeah, a bit two things that I'm thinking based on that. I think I understand where the POC is coming from, but it's a bit challenging as part of this SIG, right? Given most of our representative, although they're the same as SIG too, I was going to say are not necessarily hands-on developers. But I think the intention was really not to step into the code and more rather step into what we're doing, for instance, that user stories create a cloud cluster, more the low-level design, right? And let more contributors as part of SIG to contribute the code, whether that code is a POC kind of code or whether that code is what makes it into the release. So that's one thing that I think I believe was at least my impression when it comes to implementation. And yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily gate these user stories to have POC, right, to be completely owned by SIG2 onwards. But that's where, and I know also as part of how some of the teams are working for defining the user stories to ensure that they have resources, right, to contribute on the code. So is there any, beside, as we heard from Tim, identifying some task breakdown, populating properly the Git board so things are tracked?
Before we answer,
Yeah.
a quick other point that our deliverables for R3 do not only have to be code and functionality. We can deliver a document that shows the plan, in a consumable way for the outside world, right? So SIG1 can also create deliverables, right, as part of documentation. So let's consider that also as an option other than just releasing a working POC.
Yeah. So one thing.
Yes, thank you, Tal.
Go ahead, Sana. I will go after you.
Just a quick note on that. I think we have been discussing this topic quite a few times, and we are more refined than where we were in the beginning of the discussion in terms of our collaboration and our exercise and working through these user stories. One thing that I would like to see from SIG2, knowing, of course, the constraints that the developers are not as many as we could have had in SIG2, and it's a volunteer work, it's a community effort, we have limited resources. One decision, if that could have happened at all, would be that which user story is the next one in the pipeline that you have picked up. Maybe that will help us arrive at the theme, even if we are not finished by that 6 months mark, which is kind of waterfall, we all agree to that, we would still know what's coming in next. So that will actually define the theme of what we are working towards. That decision could come from SIG2, based on whatever is given in terms of our user stories. And even if it's not complete, we would still know that this is how it's flowing in the future releases. We'll know the pipeline.
Okay, so I'm going to go with the hand raise before jumping into commenting.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. One thing we discussed is I think there are, like Tal said, just want to make sure that you can hear me. I had some internet issues today.
You're good.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So, so there are a few wish lists from SIG2, SIG3, essentially around usability. We are gonna file a couple of stories there. Obviously, one is to work in a real Kubernetes environment, other than the kind cluster itself, where we have real interconnectivity between clusters. The other one is the existing bug where the deployment takes so long. I mean, just an example, right? A couple of examples. But in addition to that, there are three or four main themes that we can look at. The four main themes are the RAN use case. There is a use case for SDK. There is a use case for SA and observability. If you can combine them into one, and then obviously there's one modeling use case, and then the security use cases as well. So one of the things I think to your question about creating a board on that, Alexis, yes, I'm very much willing to do that. I think probably that's what we should do. We should create a board for execution of all these things. And we should track it that way. And and I'm assuming from the point it's some I don't think Tal mentioned 3 months. I hope we have at least six months from now to do that release. And then we also discussed internally at one point in the SIG automation meeting, probably we should go back to that method of having focus groups, which is focusing on individual streams. For example, there could be one focus group for RAN for execution, which includes both SIG2, SIG3, SIG1 and SIG2 members there for that particular user story. Similarly, for other main topics such as the service assurance and SDK. In that way, probably we can have divide and conquer. We can have subgroups. A subgroup will be mainly responsible for execution of that particular stream. That's also an opportunity for us to combine the experienced folks in FUO versus not so experienced in the community, so that they get an opportunity to mingle, do pair programming, learn. So these are the few things we thought. I think from in my view, Alexei, if you think whatever the stories that you have, I think you have a document. I know that. If I think probably the good first step would be providing that document to the SIG2, and then probably let's taking a look at that, and then creating that subgroups, and then it's again my opinion at this point of time, and the subgroup taking a look at each of the main stories under that particular stream and see how much we can accomplish, and then go with the plan with after that. So that's my opinion. I'm done. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Bala. Yeah, before I react, team, please go ahead. Oh, sorry, I thought.
I did. I forgot. Sorry, I was speaking to me. So just to be clear, I'm only speaking from an ORAN integration perspective. And when we started this, we set up some objectives that we wanted for release 3 from an ORAN team. And it gets along the point of what Tao was talking about. Where we simply said we needed, if we really brought it down, and you can see this in the objectives for the user stories, the slide deck that we. But it's effectively what we're doing is we have a POC that says, hey, I want to use the FOCOM. This is the OSC functions that can use some Nepio enablers to create a cluster, interface with the O2 IMS. Going to create a cluster. The second POC was to actually use the NFO from the SMO and deploy using the enablers, deploy just one NF just to get it down, right? And then we have some additional NFs that we were filling. And so that's what you see in the realization of those use cases, those 3 things, objectives that we wanted to accomplish. And as we've been going through that, we've got constraints from Nepio. Does Nepio provide these enablements? We got constraints from OEI? Does OEI provide these capabilities? We got constraints from OSC. As we've gone through these use cases, does OSC have these capabilities provided? So we started tailoring, still maintaining these 3 objectives, right? We started tailoring what we could do in the next release, right? I'm not going to even say release 3, next release, right? And now that we're at the point of these use cases, we've said, okay, we can do these things in the next release. The guys will start developing these tasks that they're going to do to see these things in the next release. And then if there's still too much there, then that might span multiple releases. And I think that's what Tao is getting at, right? But until we start identifying these tasks based upon the use cases that are there, I won't know if indeed the case, if that's going to be the case, right? Because, things got pretty well winnowed out, to be honest with you, as we went through these use cases, So there isn't too much, it's basically those 3 statements that I made at this point. I mean, we're not doing inventory, we're not doing all this other stuff, and the stretches down there. We may very well need to winnow out some more. That's fine. They'll know that when they do the tasks, right? But I'm just saying that those were the three primary objectives, and I don't see any reason. I haven't seen any reason why that's not possible. I'll know better on Wednesday, but that's the exact question I'm asking the group on Wednesday. So just to give you guys an update on that.
Okay, and so Tim, if I take it from there, to your point, it's pretty clear what are the next steps, right?
The
I think
next steps is, of course, Craig Cluster. We still got more design work, right? There was a lot of discussions they wanted to do, but they didn't want to use network automation time to do that. So we said, yep, we'll do that in the ORAN, no worries. But the next step is that those leads, Sagar, Seishu, and Ravi, and others, right? Stefan will have to go in and start creating tasks for the things that they want to do for their use cases, right? This is the stuff they would have done, created the epics and the boards, right? And the network automation.
great.
And that's what they're doing. So past that, then the next question is, and that's the question I have, it's 3 months, because I think they said June is going to be release 3. Whatever gets cut, whatever that time. You guys decide what the time frame is. I'm going to call it the next release at this point. Right? And so then they're going to say, can we do this in the next release time frame? If the answer is yes, then that's what we do, or we'll adjust, but we'll see what we can do about getting those 3 objectives completed for the next release. Or at
Okay,
least
thank you,
something,
Tim.
right?
Yeah, so I think it's
Alexei, from a release perspective, we will create a board just like the way we did it for R1 and R2. We'll do that.
yeah, but what I'm afraid is a specific release board is that things will probably spill over, right?
That's
It's not
okay.
going to be.
That's okay. If it's below, we'll move it.
You're the release lead, so it's on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. So when that board is created, then please share it so we can provide it to the proper to the leads of the working groups, so the tasks can be populated in there.
Sure. Yeah. I think it should be
Oh.
there. I'll look at it. We'll do that.
Oh, if it's there, yeah. Okay. Sorry, maybe I missed it.
Yeah, I think I had to go back and check. I forgot myself. Yeah.
Hey, Bala, and if you want to use, like on that slide 3, the objectives that we had from ORAN for those release 3s, those 3 objectives, you can use that as your epic to contain your, because it talks about the POCs and what they want to try to do. And they can throw tasks to those epics, right? If that makes sense to you.
Okay, so just to be clear, the objectives you're talking about is here, right? Just gonna go back at it because I want to make sure it's clear for everybody and not just me.
Yeah. So go to slide 3.
There you go.
Yeah, those 1,
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, right? That's
right.
Those would be the epics, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do think that if there's that right now, the working assumption is, guys, is that end of June is the release date. If that's not true, then the sooner the better to tell the community. That'd be great.
No, I think that's my understanding. Every 6 months, so June it is. But I'll try to come up to identify that date with I don't know who.
Yeah, I think we need to talk to
I'll
TSC.
figure it out.
I think honestly, June, it's not realistic at this point of time. We did the release when? We did the release February 1st week. The official announcement went out almost like a second week of February, second or third week of February. So even if you consider 6 months from March, April, May, June, July, August, I'm thinking it's mostly end of August at this point of time. But obviously,
Okay,
I'm
well,
not a decision
let's
maker.
not.
But we need to discuss that in a TSC.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not figure it out now. That's fine. Okay, so first, I think it's good. You're not blocked, Tim. You have a path forward for the time being, which is good.
Yeah.
Second thing is, Sana, when you were talking, you talked about creating a funnel of ready user stories and then picking up the next one available. And that led me to think about prioritization of user stories. I know that's a topic.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. And So right now we're not doing this. Right now, well, actually, we're not doing this because all the approved user stories are the only working group 2 ones. So I would lean on team to tell me what's the order of priority in these ones. But as soon as we're going to get user stories for service assurance, SDK, and FAO UI firmed up, it's going to come up the time to decide how to prioritize all of that.
Those user stories already been prioritized, by the way. So you
Yeah,
just look in the source.
within Tim's basically user stories, there was a relative prioritization that we did as an exercise back then.
Yeah. I know. So, yeah, but it's
But I
easy
see your
right now
point.
because right now we only have user stories approved, quote unquote, from working group 2. But as soon as we have user stories approved from other working groups, this is where we need priority. Or do we need prioritization? Because I know team in the working group 2, people are going to contribute where they feel they want to contribute, regardless the priority that we claim, right?
Right,
Because
right. That's
so
a
that's where
very
I want to be mindful about that prioritization, because I mean, it's easy for me to say I want this before that, but if I don't contribute resources, then you see what I mean, right? This is open source, so
right,
eventually it
right.
needs to be based on contributions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but be
I'll
careful. Be careful with that, right? Because again, it's a community as well. So while I agree that there's vested interest, right? But the members themselves may very well have to step back from their vested interest in order for the community's interest is higher, right? And so, particularly when we talk about backlog depth, right? So if suddenly, and so, but I haven't seen what this whole pot of stew, what we call the next release or the next potential release, looks like. Because if it comes down to it, it says that, hey, look, we have so much backlog that we really layering in some additional things onto building a house on sand isn't going to work. We need to go make sure that it's got good bedrock, right? And then the team would have to go say, okay, I need to give up, to get right. I gotta really help out with some of the core because that really needs to be done. So I'm saying these are the priorities that the ORAN team has gotten, but really we do have to have a discussion on what the needs are of the community, right? In general, and maybe someone will say, okay, I'll wait until the next piece of this, because I think this is more important, right? We have to have those conversations. That's all. I'd be careful about saying that everyone's their own person because it's still the community that's there.
I agree, and I think it talks to what Tal was saying before. But Tal, I see you have your hand raised, so maybe this is what you want to react to.
Not exactly, but I want to suggest maybe a way moving forward here is until now we've developed these user stories in SIG 1, and a few of us from SIG 2 have been joining, but not everybody, right? It really is, not everybody can make this time or has the time to join everything. I want to suggest that maybe a next step would be for members who worked on the user stories here to present them in SIG 2 and to actual developers there and see who's interested, give some Q&A, for people who weren't involved in the whole process until now. For example, even ORAN, I just have a conflict in time. I wasn't able to join those meetings, right? So I'm looking at the documents, but I wasn't part of the meetings. Maybe now that these user stories are finalized, we can kind of do a handoff where we present those and then maybe we'll have information. We'll see who's interested in working on them, who has the time, and try to assemble teams that would actually work on them, if that makes sense. Then we'll have just more information to understand like what the future can be, what our resources are.
I like the idea, but before doing so, I think it would be probably a good idea to have some of the task breakdown. But that's where I don't want to, chicken and egg issue, right? How much do we want folks to create this is the how before we present to SIG 2, where we could get a different opinion on the how. So I think there is maybe a little bit of a balance there, but let's not make things complicated at this point in time. I think I'll just take the advice I like that one. Sana?
Yeah, Alexi, I have a quick one to the same topic. All good discussions, all good ideas that you gathered so far. I think everything is making some perfect sense. One thing that we need to keep in mind in the prioritization of use case, there is one aspect of considering the next theme. I'm almost wearing the DSC hat right now. I had a discussion with Kandan when I presented the SIG1 progress in that DSC. This was a similar discussion that we were having in that basically presentation to share the 6 months waterfall model versus how we are iteratively working and collaborating. And one thing that did stand out of the discussion was focusing on the themes. If we have a theme, for example, if the telcos, the community, like Tim mentioned, is the user of Nephew as a product eventually, is looking for the biggest pain point among the set of user stories. For example, this is in ORAN, this is in the UI, we have a subset. We could start focusing on a theme. What is it that we are solving in Nephew first? And maybe that could also help us channel the prioritization of how this should evolve. And then we will have a marketing team as well. Like in every 6 months release, there is an aspect to bring more contributors to the community, to share that with the world, to show the Nephew progress to the broader world. We have to have a story, a theme, like what we accomplished within 6 months. And I completely see Tall's pain points. Some of the work that they have to do is not about that representation to the global community, but to basically fix the fix the things that are wrong. But we can't show off that, right? So basically, we need to continue that momentum to the external world as well as we move this forward. And of course, all the service providers who are in this forum should have their voice to say what problem, what pain point do we want to solve next in this that will help us adopt this faster. Could slash the prioritization use cases, one factor could be this as well.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Sana. I think this is a good idea and a good input to help formalize a little bit the process on how we move forward. So thank you.
Right.
Okay, and I wanted also to react on one thing. I think Tal, you said release can have documents. It's actually so much of a good point that Bernard come up with a suggestion. It's been a while now, but still the suggestion is good, is to have official release document per release, right? And we had a couple of them. I'm not going to go through them all now. It's not the point, but that's an idea that also was already part of, I would say, the stew of ideas that we're contemplating for R3. Of course, we'll have to work on these things, but I think some of them we're already working on, such as a high-level process description of the various activities. So that's the user journey, functional architecture and component. We're working on that. The user stories themselves and creating that funnel that we're working on. Some sequence diagram as part of the user stories. We do have some of them. I think eventually we can make a broader view of all of these, and then schema. So I believe in R3 we're going to be potentially in a good shape to produce these kind of documents as part of the release. So anyway, all I wanted to say is I definitely agree that release can have documents. All right, so sorry, I'm trying to think a little bit here. So at this point in time, my main goal was to make sure that the working group 2 is not in the waiting mode. I think that's not the case. So now I think we need to start working and facilitating a little bit that process, like materialize a little bit. We got good inputs. And Tal, so you suggested presenting user stories to SIG 2. Do you think, and I don't know, so Tal, sorry, and Tim, do you think that's something we should start acting on now? What's your opinion?
I think as they're ready, whichever is most mature right now, we can start with that.
Thanks, Tim.
Well, we've already, discussed this in the RX scoping, right? So if indeed we want to get it to the broader group, we can start doing that. But I think let me talk to the group on Wednesday because I think you said let me at least get the initial tasking in place so people can have context, right, of what we're talking about. So we'll get the initial tasking for those epics if they want, right? And that way they can talk around tasks, and what it means in the broader use case. I think that
Yeah.
might be the best way forward, because it takes a progression from the arc scoping. You go from a use case where you're not really clear. You do some RX scoping where we've got feedback in from WIM and others on the network automation, and now we come into the broader network automation group. But after we probably do the task, so they can see a little bit further what they want, details of what they want to do, right? Does that make sense, pal? Just give them that chance to break it down one step further into a set of tasks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Good, and thank you, Tim. With what you said, you helped me frame a little bit how I can start drafting the process here. All right, so good. I think, yeah, any other inputs anyone would like to add on the topic? Okay, thank you all. I think that was a good discussion and will help us start to formalize a little bit that process that is being asked. So next topic is the Gen AI. Sana, do you want to kick off a little bit the discussion there?
Yes. And I'm glad that we found time for this. I was almost thinking that we might not find these 15 minutes at the end, but you were well tracking the time, Alexei. So to start this discussion, I would just think that we have broadly probably two major areas where I see Gen AI could be leveraged. One is basically the use of generative AI in our ML ops, the things that Subhash talked about, where we consume AI and ML in healing or scaling or fixing the application health or the deployment of Nephew. Basically, Nephew deployed workloads to basically perform the lifecycle management in the closed loop. That's one aspect of using AI and ML. And the second big part, which I am more passionate about right now, basically doing some of that internal work already with our internal products and teams, and I want to bring that one to Nephew, is the use of generative AI in our ability to interact with the product at various levels. How do we interact with any product? There could be generative AI in the documentation of the product that the users are using, a very easy initial plugin that I have personally seen some of our internal commercial products have started using, that they are helping users read through documentation through a Gen AI interface, which is only opening your documentation to generative AI through some safe manner, and then the large language models can actually process through that additional document and answer your specific questions and give you the response in a very interactive way. That's a very easy short-term generative AI use that we could think about. Now, I'm trying to make this user experience and generative AI with the product interaction a little bit more advanced, maybe throwing in one more idea to that. We create a lot of templates, and the big energy in our cloud teams is used on how we create those templates. And recently, within my own team, I'm coming from a cloud team, we create all kind of templates. We are working with Helm charts, and we are working with Terraform templates to deploy our infrastructure. We are also looking at the assignment of our site-specific configurations to some of these values files, which is, of course, another big chunk of the effort within the cloud team that we have to do. Then going to the next layer of our templates, for example, deploying the applications to the cloud requires, in the brownfield world, the Helm charts and their values files and how they're created, they're populated, how the site-specific values files are updated, and all of that. Two big aspects. I think creation of the skeleton template and the creation of the values for the template are the two other aspects that we are looking into using Gen AI to generate that, what is it that we would do in maintaining our templates and storing our templates that could take an existing LLM and some of the large language models, which probably would have some understanding of the syntax of that special language, but we are customizing that LLM to our specific use cases and retraining that. So that's another big area of exploration that we are doing within the cloud team. And we are using commercial products for that, which is using sometimes a combination of LLMs, and we could actually assess the maturity or the accuracy of where we can make success. Python generation, of course, is another one that we are quite excited to work with. So I'm parking the application level closed loop healing scaling to basically a discussion where Subhash will bring back some of his ideas, but I want to brainstorm on the first aspect of it, interacting with the product and trying to use Nephew, and where and how we can basically use generative AI, and in which order, what's easier versus how we can start to build those stories. And I was also thinking of creating a special work group which can actually review these ideas and could also potentially produce some of the incremental user stories, not overwhelming, not towards R3, maybe it's even beyond, but at least start creating some ideas, brainstorming on that, and creating some user stories as well along the way. And this will tap into the architecture. This will tap into other user stories as well as we make progress. So I'm taking a pause and happy to see what are the ideas in this community right now. What do you feel we should do to start considering generative AI for Nephew, and what would be interesting for the rest of you?
I can start if
Go ahead.
people don't have opinions, but I've took the liberty of adding a little bit of a recommendation here, but I think this is just for people that are interested when it comes to AI, right? And Gen AI for network troubleshooting. Aneta, I'm not suggesting to look necessarily at what it does. This is something open source at this point, but that's exactly in line with how we can leverage some of the Gen AI to do troubleshooting, right? So it's like having a prompt to talk to your network and understand what's going on. So it's a read-only kind of thing. So right now it's not doing any kind of write operation on your network. So it's not as intrusive. And as I don't know if we have reached that maturity yet in Nephew, but as Nephew is maturing, that's definitely some of the capability we could look at bringing. The other, for me, where I really want these to go is network provisioning, right? Why most of the people on the call would know that you have a heterogeneous network. Various vendors, each vendors have their own proprietary model. Some of them are using OpenConfig, but we know OpenConfig has reached a certain degree of adoption that doesn't allow that interop that we are hoping for. What if that abstraction level now is just an agent, a prompt, right? An LLM, a model that is trained specifically on these models, and anyway, that's these are areas that I have in mind, but again, very much forward-looking and not something very tactical today to help Nephew. Nephew currently has a lot of fundamental architecture components that needs to be looked at, and I know SIG2 is looking at them already. But in the meantime, I don't see why there is nothing we can do to experiment on the same side, right? So I'll stop here. That's the only things that I wanted to add. Tim?
Yeah, so
sorry, I just saw your comment.
yeah, I
couldn't read
put
it
in
yet.
the chat, and I just wanted to make sure because I always looked at it was like, anymore, Gen AI, AIML, if you don't have those acronyms in your vocabulary, every other word, then obviously something's wrong, and I don't believe that's the case, by the way. But I do think that we have a mission within Nefio, and I put the mission statement there, right? That at least I understand it. And I think I think it's fair for us to ask ourselves, what what enablers AI can bring to help us meet our mission. Focus on the mission that we've set for ourselves, and how AI can do that, right? And Gen AI is one aspect of that, right? And then create a white paper, some sort of white paper that talks about that in the context of how it enables that mission. If we do that, I think we get a better context of trying to understand what it is that we think these technologies can help us fulfill our goals, right? At least it would to me, because right now it's a little blurry. I mean, we could throw it out to all these little things, but I think we got to step back and look at it from a more broader perspective. At least that's my impression.
Tim, that's a great suggestion, and I'm glad Alexi has already taken it basically on the notes. Alexi, I almost feel like we should take an action before we even start creating another working group for this. We should start producing a white paper based on all the inceptions and initial ideas and release that as a part of our deliverables towards any release. Like Tal mentioned, some of that could be documentations as well, right? As we are formalizing our implementation level ideas, this could be an exciting outcome of all this kind of brainstorming that we are doing. Plus, Alexi and I also have a talk in which we have to cover the generative AI aspect for Nephew. That will also enable us to prep and formalize some of that discussion that we want to do for that. So let's take it as an action, Alexi, if we could produce that white paper, and whoever wants to contribute, we'll take all of them into this and we can produce that as the first deliverable. Alexi,
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
No. I was sorry. I was typing. I'm a kind of person that can do only
You
one
are a
thing at a
great
time.
multitasker, Alexi. I can't do
No,
that.
Yeah, I think instead of calling it a white paper, a document is good. A white paper may be a very strong word, but a document, yes, definitely we can produce some documentation regarding the use cases.
Even a blog on Nephew website, like we'll socialize that with Kandan as well. See like what he feels should be a good place for this kind of.
Exactly.
Instead of creating. Go ahead, sorry, Bala.
But for the internal thing, probably we can start a doc and people can add comments and add contents to it. We can create an open doc.
Yeah, that's also a very good idea. Because there's so many people not on the call, and maybe they have some ideas on how to use generative AI for Nephew, and we can pool all of the ideas through that collaborative internal work. And we can produce the document as some of the main contributors plus everybody in the community. We can add all of their names, whoever produced their comments or ideas, and we could acknowledge that in the paper.
Yeah.
So I guess it's on you to start. Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, Alexis, so yes. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to try to investigate generative AI for Nephew, but we have to be careful also because I think maybe we should know what generative AI can bring to the networks. But as far as I know, so we are investigating also within a round, and we try to understand what are the capabilities of this new LLM. But we need, let's say, to assess that also with real, let's say, network equipment, existing network and so on, to better understand what could be achievable with this kind of new techniques. On today, I think we are not yet there. So I think we need to investigate much more to understand the potential of this new technique. But I'm pretty sure there are plenty of use cases for that. This is maybe the first, to get this common understanding between all of us. And maybe after we can say, okay, for Nephew, we need to, let's say, investigate specific topic, for example, as you say, Alexi, to get a dedicated chatbot to help to debug or for observability and so on. But I think maybe we need to have maybe these two points in the time to to better understand what is possible with these techniques to share this vision all together, and after maybe try to understand where we can focus in a few projects on, maybe because otherwise it can be very broad, a broad topic to evaluate the potential of generative AI for networks. So we need to focus also on some specific topics.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Eric. And I think when we try to work on this document, we will hear everyone's opinion as well, as in what they want to see potential for generative AI to solve. And one very interesting phenomena that I have observed is that a lot of people are using, I'm going back to this template creation idea. A lot of people are using Nephew for code creation, right? And it would be very, very helpful for all the people who are working on automation to be able to generate those templates to generative AI, because I think that's one of the aspects that I am really passionate about. I've seen people in my team who produce Python codes through some of those tools, who are producing many parts of the Ansible through generative AI as well. And there are lots of tools out there, and we don't know when and how Nephew could leverage some of the pre-existing tools, and how can we create hooks and plugins to those to basically create that user experience where Nephew templates could be generated with that. So this is a big discussion, and maybe we can learn from SIG 2, because they're all developers, if they are using any generative AI techniques in how they are producing the code on their own. That would actually help us brainstorm some ideas on the code generation aspect of Nephew. And very curious to learn your experiences if you have played with that.
Okay. Thank you. I think this is a great way to start the discussion, and I feel there is some good interest. So I think, Sana, it's on us to start creating that brainstorm document.
Yes.
I'll create the proper tasks in the board here so we can move that forward, and probably as soon as we have something, came back to this team and share what we came up. Well, the goal is not to come up with something, rather just to create the document. So that could be fairly quick. Before we wrap it up, I missed one topic for me, the RX scope. So, and so I'm gonna be very pointy here. Tal and Bala, I'm really looking for your help. I know I pinged you on Slack, but I'm looking for your help to identify a little bit some of the, back to the theme of what Sana was talking about for R3. I know you're undergoing a lot of stress in your SIGs to scope and identify what R3 is going to mean as well in terms of for the platform. If that's not done, then that's not done. But I'd love to try capturing some of the high-level work streams in these SIGs, so I can, so that document can become the one-stop document where anyone would know, okay, this is the realm of the possible for R3, not necessarily what will happen, but just the realm of the possible, and then we take it from there. So if you could contribute in there, or ping me, or send me breadcrumbs, whatever, I'll figure it out. But I need a bit of a guidance here.
Got it. I'll do that. Yeah. Thanks, Alex.
Okay. So with that, I think we're on time. So wrapping up the hour. Anything else before we drop, team? I just want to set one thing straight. As exciting it is as talking about Gen AI, the reality in SIG 2, right, is there is fundamental things that needs to be solved. I'm saying things because I don't want to talk about them out of thin air. But so we keep being forward-looking here, but we want to make sure at the same time that, I think, team, you said it well, we can deliver on something that is solid and not a sandcastle. So let's keep that in mind as well.
And
with that,
so yeah, before you close, just one more topic on, just one more comment on that. I know we are struggling with SIG 2 workforce who are developing, the excited developers to contribute in that. We have two things. We have limited money and we are trying to find ways on how do we spend that money effectively. And I'm offering like potentially an idea, how do we make more money so that we could spend it better? So some of the things that we talk about, for example, generative AI and the potential of this in solving some of the nephew problems could attract more developers, more community members and contributors to that. So even if we don't produce anything tangible right away, and even if we start brainstorming on those ideas, maybe when we go to this conference and when we share some of our ideas, we can attract more potential volunteers. And that could solve some of the problems in SIG2, which is basically not having enough people to basically be able to write the code, which is basically overwhelming SIG2's work at the moment. Just a food for thought, Tol. Maybe that's something we should aim at as well. Universities, students.
Yep.
I don't know where we should go, but I think we should recruit more developers and create more engagement within that community. Make people excited about this.
I think no one will not agree with you. That's a very good point.
Good. Let's try to see that as well.
Yes.
And I'll talk to Kandan on that as well. How do we do that? Like what more should we do for this?
All right, everyone, we're on time. So thank you for joining today. Have a good rest of the day and good rest of the week ahead. Anything between now and then, please ping me or Sana. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
And get well, Sana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.